my question is, will Trump and Putin reach a deal, you think, and what will that deal look like? Or ultimately, I think Russia decides. How do you think it's going to be split? Is it going to be the Dnieper River, eastern Ukraine, east of the Dnieper River, and west can go, is going to remain, maybe western Ukraine or become part of Poland, Hungary, Romania, and a little bit of that left? How do you see this ending?
I think that's up to the Russian military. It's up to the Russian president. I like the map which Dmitry Medvedev has previously released, showing a division of Western Ukrainian regions between Poland, Hungary, Slovakia, Romania. Everyone takes a little piece because all those regions there, the border regions with the EU, they weren't historically part of Ukraine. There was no Ukraine to begin with, firstly, but in 1940, those areas were annexed actually, thanks to the Soviet Union, thanks to Joseph Stalin. So the Poles have a historical claim to those lands. What I would say is, because Zelensky owes so much money to NATO, to the EU, as a token of reparations, as a token of paying off all of the hundreds of billions of dollars in weapons and cash that Zelensky's received, Ukraine loses those territories. They are annexed by Poland, Romania, Hungary, other countries. Everyone takes a slice. Russia must connect Transnistria, Pridnestrovia. It must connect that to the motherland, to the mainland, and particularly now that there's a problem with gas reaching that area, that just justifies the fact that Russia has to go all the way, and Transnistria can be the new border with the EU, right? Transnistria, the people in Transnistria have been waiting patiently for a very long time. I've got a lot of respect for them. This is this little strip of territory which has never really left the Soviet Union. In 1999, when everyone said, all right, the Soviet Union's collapsing, the people of Transnistria said, no, thank you. We want to continue. So if you go to Transnistria, it's like a time machine. There's hammer and the sickles, and there's Soviet architecture and Soviet monuments. It's fantastic, right? So that area could be joined to Russia. Odessa should come home to Russia because it's a Russian city, Russian speakers. The people of Odessa have been waiting and waiting. They've been suffering. A lot of the male population have been kidnapped and dragged off by Zelensky's body snatchers, the mobilization gangs sent to the front lines, because Zelensky's body snatcher mobilization squads, they like to target Russian-speaking areas and cities and towns and villages. For example, Kharkov as well. And so much blood has been lost unnecessarily for the ego of one man, for the ego of Zelensky. All he had to do was step aside, step down, right? In fact, right now, he didn't have an election. He's an unelected, false president. He's not a real democratically elected leader. And I hope Donald Trump can see the benefit of making a deal with Putin and shaking hands and saying, all right, let's sort this out. Like Yalta, when they had Truman, Stalin, Churchill, sit around, get together, carve up the map of the world, who owns what, who gets what, right? If Trump wants Greenland, Russia should give it to him, all right? Obviously, that's bad for Russia because Greenland will give America access to the Arctic, and the Arctic is trillions and trillions of dollars of natural resources there. Oil, gas, it's undeveloped, and maybe there's a good case to say that the Arctic shouldn't be exploited to preserve the environment there and keep it unmilitarized. But Russia has a massive advantage because Russia has access to the Arctic. Now, the Donald Trump administration are openly saying we want Greenland, we even want Canada, we want Mexico. Hey, good on them, let them have it. Why not? Go for it. Well, if I was Russia, I would say, well, it's none of our business what you do on your border. You want to invade Mexico, you want to invade Canada, have a referendum and annex Canada, it's up to you, it's up to the Canadians, right? And that's what the Americans should have said to Russia. If you want to have a referendum in Crimea, if you want to join territories back to Russia, it's none of our business, let Russia do it. So that would be a great thing. Trump wins, Trump increases America's landmass, he restores a bit of dignity to the American nation, to the American military, lifts morale. That's what you call literally making America great again, increasing their territory. And in exchange for Russia saying okay to that, Russia gets to figure out Ukraine on its own, complete the mission. And once it's all done and dusted, once Zelensky is removed, once the Nazis are removed, Ukraine returns to being in some capacity Russia's friendly neighbor, where there's no guns, there's no bombs, there's no rockets, there's no missiles, just people getting on with their lives. There's so much work to be done repairing that country, fixing Ukraine. None of these people, Albanese, none of them, Peter Dutton, ScoMo, none of them are going to be anywhere close to Ukraine when it's time to rebuild, right? Australia gave 1 billion for weapons. Now, how much is Australia going to give to help Ukraine rebuild? They're not, right? Because by that stage, fingers crossed, Ukraine is going to be safely under Russian jurisdiction. There is an argument to say there should be a piece of Ukraine, an administrative piece of Ukraine left as a nation, so all the debts of Ukraine can be pinned on that Ukrainian entity, right? Russia doesn't want to inherit Ukraine's problems. If you look at all the new regions which Russia is taking, Zaporozhye, Kherson region, Donetsk, Lugansk, anywhere the Russian troops enter, the local Ukrainians love it, because what does the Russian army do? As they liberate these towns and villages, they say, whatever debts you owe to the Ukrainian banks or the Ukrainian government, mortgages, loans, whatever, wiped clean. So imagine being a Ukrainian, right? The Russian army walks in, bang, you've just got everything back. Moreover, then the Russians give you their pensions, right? And their pensions, the Russian pensions are far higher than the Ukrainian ones. So the Russians are providing lots of capital, lots of work, lots of opportunities to these regions. These regions are being pumped full of cash. Crimea is being pumped full of cash. If you want to make money in real estate, buy now in Crimea and the Russian territories, because in a few months, in 6 months, however long it takes, eventually those areas will be internationally recognized, especially if Trump says, that's it, we're recognizing Russia's claims. And then the cost of buying real estate, commercial, industrial, factories, mines, markets, service stations, apartments, whatever you want, it's going to go through the roof. You got the Black Sea coast, prime real estate.
I agree. I was in Georgia, Batumi, and bought real estate just before COVID. So that area is certainly booming in Crimea. I think if we can, my sister-in-law is Russian. They looked at Crimea, but it will be interesting what you're saying. I think it just highlights the point, Ozzy, that a lot of dumbed-down Westerners don't realize that, you know, the EU and Western Europe is going bankrupt. I mean, Germany, the largest economy, is in all sorts of trouble. And this is all because of policies of the globalist elite, like the Biden administration, etc. Is destroying that. So the idea that I think a lot of young people, even Ukrainians, even some Russians, are brainwashed by Hollywood and the West that, you know, we come to the West, we're going to get freedom and we're going to have a rich life. But the reality is different. You know, the more reality for, you know, what's going to be left of Ukraine, would you say, is probably more like what was left of Iraq and Afghanistan and Libya, destroyed, war-torn countries that, you know, it's going to be a very poor standard of living, the poor Ukrainians. So obviously it's true, those that were taken over by Russia or liberated by Russia, already we see the evidence of massive infrastructure and being built. And I see Russia seems to be able to construct buildings like the speed that China does, way more superior to what they do in the West. And in the West would take forever and charge 10, 20 times the price. It's just profit gouging from rebuilding countries that they just, you know, fund the destruction of to profit then from the reconstruction. So I think they're going to miss out on that. But I think it's important what you're saying is that people don't realize that Western Ukraine, I mean, who's going to want it? It's going to be a broke, bankrupt, war-torn country. That's not the dream that these poor young Ukrainians were sold by Hollywood in the West, that they're going to have freedom and a modern democracy.
Absolutely, and they're going to realize shortly that Russia was right. And I think a lot of Ukrainians do realize that now. They're beginning to regret en masse their dreams of Maidan and being closer to Europe. All they've got is blood, shed, debt, and a collapse. Ukraine now is a failed state. On the issue of the economics of war and the way that Europe is going bankrupt, one thing to note, Russia is fighting the special operation with cash, right? When is the last time the United States fought a war using cash? Every time Biden signs another 50 billion or 60 billion or 100 billion to Zelensky, he's not actually giving them money that America has. That's just adding to the 45, 46, 47 trillion dollars in debt, right? Whereas Russia is fighting this war directly from cash profits from oil and gas and Russia's booming energy sector. Russia is blessed by God to have a huge amount of territory. Minerally, in terms of mineral resources, Russia's the richest country by far. They've got everything. They've got Mendelev's whole table: gold, timber, fresh water, everything. You name it, Russia has it. Now, Russia is fighting this war on cash, right? Russia is far, far from bankrupt. Russia is in the plus. And all of these huge wages which Russian soldiers are receiving, Russian soldiers are getting unprecedented wages now. Even for Russian standards, it's huge, but even for Western standards, the Russian soldiers are being paid a lot of money, being remunerated. President Putin has given them massive amounts of money, so like sign up bonus of, I think it's 160,000 Australian dollars. It's crazy money, right?